Let's talk about the Charlotte Hornets. Let's talk about their upcoming season. What is the buzz around this team? Michael Bolton, please. I'm so sorry.
Thanks, Josh. It's Michael Bolton here, and it's time for another episode of the Locked On Fantasy Basketball Podcast. Let's get to it.
Let's get to it, indeed.
You are Locked On Fantasy, your daily NBA fantasy podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hello and welcome to the Locked On Fantasy Basketball Podcast, brought to you by Basketball Monster. My name is Josh Lloyd, and family, religion, and friendship are the three demons that you must slay if you wish to succeed in business. I'm also the lead fantasy analyst at basketballmonster.com, and today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Thank you also for making Locked On Fantasy Basketball your first listen every day. We are free, and we're available on all platforms. We're talking Charlotte Hornets. We're talking about the Hornets today, and in the next day or two, we're going to be talking about the Boston Celtics. So we're going to see which team is going to battle for the worst rotation of centers in the entirety of the NBA. That'll be an absolutely fascinating discussion. So let's just get in and start talking Hornets now. So, for the Hornets, that's what we're doing. We're talking to the man with the golden tonsils. It is the host of the Locked On Hornets podcast. Walker Mail is here with me once again. Walker, welcome back to the show.
I like that you mixed it up a little bit. Nobody ever says golden tonsils. Usually people say the golden pipes. Thank you for one, which, that was, I just realized how pat on the back that was. I didn't mean to do that. It's a switch up of a compliment, and I appreciate it. It's refreshing.
No, it's, hey, you know what? I don't take that as you saying, oh, look at me. Everyone's telling me how good my voice is. It's all about the golden
tonsils, golden tonsils, baby. Yeah.
There you go. Maybe you can get that. You can get a couple of different little monikers. You can introduce yourself as even that, as referred to by Josh Lloyd as the golden tonsils. My name is Walker Mail. We can do. I can even record a voiceover for you. There's so many opportunities for us here, Walker, to do that.
Thank you. I'm gonna get a neon sign made of Josh Lloyd referenced golden tonsils. I'm gonna get a neon sign.
I'm gonna flash the screen over so people can see your neon sign there.
There you go. All right, represent Locked On Hornets, baby.
I said I wasn't going to talk about it on the show today, but I did ask you before. I said, did you get that from Tony, the guy in China making all those neon signs? And you're like, I don't know what it is. So I've given you some background work to research about Tony and LC signs, and you can have a look. And then your whole studio is going to be full with neon signs after watching Tony and his ads. So check it out.
Big neon sign fan. Honestly, I didn't realize it until I saw other pods had maybe one or two in the background. I'll mess around and I'll get 5 or 6 of them. So now that I have all the information you sent me, I'm ready to go with whoever this TikTok sensation is.
This is the Locked On podcast that is all about neon, the most neon show that does exist. And what we are going to talk about, of course, which is the most sparkling, the most exciting, the most highlighted part in probably the entire NBA, it's the Hornets center rotation, because there may not be another team. Or actually, there's another team that's worse, and that is the Boston Celtics. And I'm going to talk to John about this tomorrow. The Hornets center room is not very good, is it? Is it, Walker? It's not very good. We're talking about Moussa Diabate, who played a bit of power forward last season. He was on a 2-way contract. We're talking about the heralded return of the cockroach Mason Plumlee. And then, of course, there's the second-round pick, Ryan Cockbrenner, as this team really leans into the big cock and ball maybe starting lineup. We'll see how they decide to go. So
yeah.
Let's talk centers. Okay, so there's those three guys. The main guy that people want to be the guy in fantasy circles is going to be Ryan Cockbrenner, who I don't think I've ever seen anybody shoot as slowly as he does, or move as slowly, or actually look more like the reincarnation of Brook Lopez, who of course is not dead when he moves around the court. What do you... I'm scared that the answer is going to be they'll start the season with Mason Plumlee. How do you think they're going to approach this center position?
Okay, so I apologize that I might not do the Kalkbrenner highlight montage that you have ready to go any justice. I think they're going to start Moussa Diabate, and I think they're going to play him more minutes than any other center, at least early on. I know guys like Zach Lowe, they've been talking about the Hornets in a lot of their WTF category, under the radar teams to discuss categories. Zach has mentioned how the Hornets really like him. That's what Jeff Peterson has talked about, how much they like Kalkbrenner. At the same time, he was the 4th of 4 draft picks, and they had 3 29 or later. So you can say how much you like him. I don't know how much of an option they have if your center rotation is Mason Plumlee, Ryan Kalkbrenner, and Moussa Diabate. But in summer league, everybody kind of gravitated more towards him. All the eyeballs were on him because there is a really easy pathway to gaining a lot of minutes. There's just not a lot of centers on this team that you can trust. And yet he didn't dominate defensively. You mentioned it. Not only does his form look slow, but he is pretty damn slow as a basketball player right now. Yeah, for sure. Even with maybe even some encouraging combine measurements with like lane agility stuff, like there was surprisingly quick compared to how he plays basketball, surprisingly quick measurements. The playing basketball part is the most important, and he still looks slow. Still think he's good in drop coverage. Still think he's a good rim deterrer. But again, not being the biggest fantasy basketball player myself, not understanding the game in that regard as much, I don't know if you're going to get a lot of blocks, Josh. Like I think if there was a stat for rim deterrence, then maybe Kalkbrenner would be your guy. But I think he scares people to shoot more than he blocks a whole lot of shots. And then it's one of those things where he was easily manipulated in summer league, in my opinion, defensively, like one fake, and then they were able to get some angles. I think you saw that quite a bit. But I do like him in drop coverage. And I think some of the things that he went for, like that's coachable. Don't leave your feet. Hope you would like a 23-year-old to already understand that. But even still, hopefully that's coachable. I think Moussa Diabate is going to get the most minutes. I think he should get the most minutes at center. I think he's your guy. Josh, I'm all in on Moussa. My last episode that I just released, I think he's someone that will end this season with a higher reputation than he begins it. So a couple of the knocks on Moussa. Not very skilled with the basketball in his hands. That's absolutely true. He actually shot a pretty decent percentage compared to other bigs in the league in that like short mid area. So some push shots, maybe some short roll opportunity for him to shoot over some bigger players that he'll be matched up against. I think that's a decent area on the floor for him to try to win. He will dunk on you, especially if he gets a full head of steam. But really, like, if the accusations on Moussa are that he's a little bit smaller, it is true. Without shoes at the combine a few years ago, he was 6'9.25" with shoes. He's 6'10". So it's not like Grant Williams small ball level. It's small, right? Like Moussa does have some size. 2.7 body fat percentage, by the way, which is like absolutely ridiculous. Just an all muscle.
That's about the same range as me, I'd say. But
same. I thought I was looking at you. I thought Moussa, Josh Lloyd, very similar. Moussa just a tank out there on the court. I think the offensive rebounds that he gains, how much better the Hornets are when he's on the floor compared to even a Mark Williams. I think defensively for 82 games, just going to be difficult to keep up with because the 110% motor is out there. I think when you get to the postseason, I use win with the optimistic approach. The Hornets probably not going to do that this year. But in playoff scenarios, I'll say that's when you start to worry about it. But like for 82 games, there's something to be said for playing your bleep off every single second that you're actually in the game. And I think he's super mobile. I'm a fan of Moussa. I think he's going to end the season with a significantly better reputation than where he begins it. And I think there's some analytics to point to that suggests that he's a winning impact basketball player, like in spurts. I don't want him playing 35, but I think he's going to be a 25-minute per game player, partly because they have to play him. Like there's not a lot of better options, but also I'm going to enjoy the Moussa minutes. I think I know it's a hot take, but I'm all in on Moussa.
It is. It's a little hot take. I think he's fine. I don't think he's that good. I think he is okay. You talk about rim protection. He doesn't do any of that. Like he doesn't block shots. He doesn't contest shots. He gets steals at a decent rate. I think that he is. I don't know. If you were a good team, and unfortunately, Walker, they're not. But if you were a good team, he'd be a third string center, and he'd be absolutely great in that role. And if you have to push into a backup, you'd be really happy with that, right? I just think there is a limit to the things you do. Now I'm going to ask because I don't want to dwell on this center position too much, right? But this roster has so many players on it, and they need to make 3 cuts on this roster currently, or trades to get rid of guys. And there's only one player who is non-guaranteed on this roster, and that is the big fella Moussa Diabate. Now, I don't think that he's at any risk of getting waived, but he's the only player who is non-guaranteed. They need to cut 3 guys. I think that the guys that they're going to cut, you're going to be like Pat Connaughton and Daquan Jeffries. Sorry, Daquan Jeffries is non-guaranteed, so he's gone, right? But I need 2 more. So Pat Connaughton, he's got $9 million. But who's the other guy? Is it Nick Smith? Is it Spencer Dinwiddie, who they just signed? Is it what is it? Is it just Nick Smith?
I think it's Nick Smith Jr. That would be the option. So if the easy answers are Jeffries, easy, Connaughton, easy there too. I maybe not easy because Charles Lee does have familiarity with Connaughton during their Milwaukee days. So I shouldn't say that. But I do think Nick Smith Jr. is your next guy where they threw a lot at him last year. I think they like him. I think Charles Lee invested a decent amount in him in terms of giving him an opportunity. Last year, they threw a ton at him in Summer League, right? Just to see a different regime. Okay, how much do we truly like this guy? But he's the guy. They're not going to cut Moussa. Like I think he's going to be the starter. And Charles Lee has spoke glowingly about him constantly. How partly they're not going to say anything bad about their center rotation. But you mentioned how you don't want to see Mason open up the season as the starter. Same. Like, even if Moussa's a fine enough ball player, right? I think you're closer to consensus 100%. I'm the one that has the bold take here. A lot of this is projection. So far, what he's shown is that, right? What you're talking about. I still think he's the best center that you have on this team right now. I do.
That's honestly true. Like, I think that's probably true. Like, can he be the best center? I don't know. But at the moment, they're all bad.
Right.
So
I think he's better than Kalkbrenner right now. Mm-hmm. I think he's better than Mason Plumlee at this point in his career. And there's some fun stuff you can do. Like, he will run in transition. I think this team is going to run a lot more with signing 13 different guards this offseason, seemingly. So I think, like, defensively, if you just don't have somebody that you really truly feel you can anchor the paint with, then I guess let's just get someone that makes it hard to dribble against and like be mobile out there on the perimeter in some of those. I think Moussa is your best option to start.
We're going to come back and talk about the actual good players on this team in a sec. Today's episode, Today's episode is brought to you by Open Phone. If you're running a business, you know that every missed call is money left on the table. What about the last time that you had an urgent need? Maybe you were like, man, I really need to find Mason Plumlee's agent to re-sign him to the team. And then you call and he doesn't answer. You go, what am I going to do? Do I wait for Mason Plumlee? Well, if you're Hornets, of course you do. But otherwise, you just move on to the next. But with Open Phone, you never miss those calls. So Mason Plumlee's agent, maybe you need to get Open Phone. It's the #1 business phone system built to streamline and scale your customer communications, all from an app on your phone or on your computer. Open Phone lets you manage business calls and texts from a single app, and the shared inbox feature is a game changer. It can let your team jump into any conversation instantly without missing a beat, and their AI agent handles after-hour calls, answers common questions, and captures leads so you never miss a customer. Open Phone is offering you guys 20% off your first 6 months at openphone.com/lockedonnba. That is openphone.com/lockedonnba. And if you have existing numbers with another service, Open Phone will port them over at no extra charge. Open Phone. No missed calls, no missed customers. So, I teased it, Walker. I said we're going to talk about good players, and I didn't lie because we are going to have a discussion now on Brandon Miller, who started, well, obviously the season ended really early with that significant wrist surgery injury. But before that, under new coach Charles Lee, both he and LaMelo Ball just decided that they were going to take the most threes that almost anybody's ever seen for like high usage players.
I don't think you need to say almost, Josh. I think it was quite literally more threes than anybody else was taking in the league. Because again, it's the Hornets, so people's attention on them dipped. Miller played only 27 games, but he was taking an unbelievable amount of threes. I believe, from the top of my head, I think he finished like top 4 in 3-pointers made per game for the entirety of the season, like per game. Like, what did his attempt rate was like 62% or 60% or something like that from 3 on the volume that he was taking. He was taking a lot of threes. Now, it was clearly by design because LaMelo was doing, unless both of them decided, hey, screw the coach, we're just taking everything from deep. They went absolutely crazy from there. Do you think that's a thing that Charles Lee is leaning into? Is it something that they're going to look to expand even further on? Because it's not like, Miller's shooting numbers or his overall efficiency was elite or anything like that. Like, he shot 36% from 3, which is fine, but it's not 40. But he attempted, he hit 3.9 triples per game on, I'm just looking for the attempts. 11.
Yeah, that's ridiculous. Those are
it's nuts. Yeah,
they're ridiculous numbers. So you think we're going to get more of that like 60% 3-point attempt rate and just going at it again. And like if he turns 35.5% into 38%, then we're talking a guy that's hitting Steph Curry numbers from deep.
The only reason it would go down is because his overall field goal attempt level goes down just because of all the guards. So like, okay, you have LaMelo, who was injured a lot last year. You have Brandon Miller, who was injured a lot last year.
Didn't nearly all of Miller's games LaMelo played, correct?
Yes, for the most part. Yeah, because Brandon only played 27.
Yeah.
And so LaMelo was not injured at that point.
No,
unless there was some kind of nagging thing, I don't think there was any overlap there.
He missed
so
like
you're
one
right.
or two. Like Melo missed like one or two back-to-backs early in the season, but basically he played all the way through. He even played some back-to-backs.
Right.
And then when the record started to look as it did, we started to get a little bit more, it's really sore. And then we started to see that stuff happening. So so they would do it. Now, you're right about Colin Sexton coming in there because he's going to take shots. Although, I'm going to suggest that maybe either of these teams don't value, or his current and former team, Colin Sexton, don't value him that highly, considering that the Hornets got a draft pick in taking him on in exchange for Jusuf Nurkic. So it's not like the Hornets said, man, like he's so good. They went, I guess we'll take him. And they got a draft pick back in exchange as well. So I'm not sure that, is he going to be like prioritized in this sort of scenario?
It's a great question because you're right about that. When we were talking, me and Doug on Locked On Hornets, about what kind of questions does this Colin Sexton acquisition answer, I'm not sure it answers anything because you just go ahead and make that trade regardless of what position you're in.
Yeah.
Same exact contract. There's an extra pick thrown in. Colin Sexton is just a better basketball player than Nurkic. Even with the Hornets might have been tested as much as any other team with their lack of center rotation and having already dealt Mark Williams. Even still, they decided to make that trade because you're just handing us Colin Sexton and we don't have to take any extra money and another pick. Sure. Okay. Why are you doing this? What happened? So yeah, I'm not sure it answers any questions other than you just kind of have to do it. So real quickly with the shot total, I think Colin Sexton is here. The other thing is they brought Tre Mann back. They really like Tre Mann. Tre Mann played 13 games last year. And when he played early on, he looked quite good. He was 6th man of the year candidate status in terms of scoring. So I just, with all of the guards, how does all of that look? Who's being staggered with one another? Where are the overlaps? I think that's going to be really interesting to find out how all that plays out, especially right away, and then how much that goes into the season. But if the field goal attempts overall go down, I still think there's a decent shot that he hangs out in that 10 to 11 attempts per game range. One, Charles Lee wants him to shoot threes. We called this at the beginning of the year. He is a Bud disciple. This is what we know. Mike Budenholzer wants his guys to shoot a lot of threes. Guess what? Charles Lee moved on from Coach Bud, having been there in Atlanta and Milwaukee, and then he goes to Boston, where he coaches under Joe Mazzulla. Charles Lee wants to shoot a lot of threes as well. And I think there was a little bit of a project with Brandon having shot so many mid-rangers in his rookie season. You wanted to turn a lot of that into three-pointers, and Brandon, very coachable, seemingly. Okay, I will take a lot less mid-range jumpers, and I will take a lot more threes. So even if the overall field goal attempts are down, you think about adding Con Knipple, top 5 pick, who I think is going to get real run. So the classic drive in the paint, kick out, Brandon being good as a catch-and-shoot guy, and I don't love Brandon Miller as a ball handler compared to all the other guards that you have on this roster. Where do those shots come from? Probably at the 3-point line. Like, that's what makes sense to me. Yeah, man, I think we're going to see double-digit attempts from 3 again for Brandon, and hopefully, fingers crossed, he can play more than the 27 games he played last year.
Yeah, you would think so. Like, that sort of wrist injury is a little fluky. I don't think there's a problem with that. Like, he did increase his 3-point attempt rate, dropped his 2s down. His mid-ranges fell off in terms of the percentages there. But the other thing that did happen, and you've referenced this, is his assist numbers did rise. But that's probably going to be harder to maintain that playmaking with the addition of Sexton, with the return of Tre Mann, with the addition of Knipple, the big areola, as I like to call him, and Spencer Dinwiddie, who for some reason plays for this team. I don't really know why, but Spencer Dinwiddie is here. But, for years, Walker... And
we want all the guards. We want all the guards, and we don't care how we get them.
For years, we talked about this team. Bro, there's no point guards on this team. Like, LaMelo goes down, and we have to sign Ish Smith in December to be the backup point guard. Nobody can play the position. Now they're, all right, cool. We've got 6 of them, and we'll see how... We're going to have to cut one of them. We've got that many of them. That's how it's going to go. So it is now, we've got no center. So, finding the balance is maybe the challenge there, but... It is something that they have addressed. We're going to talk about LaMelo Ball as we come back. Today's episode, though, it is brought to you by Game Time. Yes, At the last minute, you might decide you want to go down to a ball game with friends or family. It might be game day, and you realize you want to be in the stands. Now, if, like Walker, you're in Charlotte, unfortunately there's no Major League Baseball teams there, but maybe you're going to go see the Charlotte Knights or one of the 35 other minor league teams that are in the North Carolina area. The easiest way to grab those last-minute tickets without the stress is Game Time. You save money on the tickets, you can splurge on food, drinks, merch, or even invite a bigger group to come along with you. Game Time makes buying tickets fast and simple. Prices on the app actually drop the closer that you get to first pitch, and they've got incredible last-minute deals, clear seat views, and the lowest price guarantee that takes the worry out of buying. It is the official ticketing partner, Game Time, of Locked On MLB as well, which makes it easier to browse the app for an upcoming, exciting Major League Baseball game. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Okay. Now, we're going to talk LaMelo Ball. The obvious question, and of course I am going to be obvious with it, is LaMelo Ball and injuries, because everybody is really, really keen to always talk about LaMelo never being available and he's always going to be hurt. But as I detailed earlier, well, I didn't really detail it, I sort of mentioned it in passing, that LaMelo was healthy for the start of last season. He was coming back off that ankle surgery that he had. He was coming back and he played the majority of the time. And then Brandon Miller went down and the team basically said, yeah, we're good. We're just going to really ease off on this. And he still did play games, and so did Mark Williams, who's no longer on the team. They played a bunch of games through February and March, more so in the past. And again, we saw there was, I think maybe the more worrying thing with LaMelo is the random wrist soreness that he had from like 3 years ago that kept cropping up. I was like, that's a little random. Why is that happening? But the ankle stuff, I believe in, again, Charlotte, the least transparent medical reporting stuff, even with the addition of my man Josh Longstaff onto the team, like they still were, Trey Mann, no, they didn't, they never announced what was actually ever happening with Trey Mann. They just said back injury, we'll tell you later, and they never did. LaMelo, injuries at the end of last season, okay, listen, they weren't real, were they?
The injuries at the end of last season, I'm not sure how real those were, and that's always what's really tough to figure out is they're not winning any basketball games. They are incentivized to lose, and so there are all the reasons in the world to keep LaMelo out at the very end of the season. The injuries at the beginning were real, right?
Yeah.
Like you had the ankle injuries that, again, where there weren't any real serious ankle injuries to the point where it was keeping him out for 6 weeks at a time, but it would keep you out for a handful of games, and then you'd come back.
He missed like 11 games at the start of December, I think it was. Oh, not 11 days. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 games at the start of December, and then he missed a couple around Christmas, and then the foolishness started in. But he did play up until the 25th of March. But there was that one injury, and then he came back and he played in back-to-backs after that, and his minutes went straight back up. So it wasn't like a consistent thing. The problem arose, obviously. There was just these little 4 or 5 game absences, and that ramped up as the season went on.
Yeah, that's how it was. And I think, well, remember 2 years ago, LaMelo said that he was going to wear ankle braces. He wasn't. And then he got injured. And who's to say if that was something, not wearing them actually led to the big time ankle injury that kept him out for all that time. He did wear them this year, and that was confirmed. And maybe it reduced the level of severity of the ankle injuries that he suffered earlier this year, because he would still have them. He'd tweak it, but he'd come back. Instead of missing again the 6 weeks, he'd be back in like 5 games time. So like that was much better. It's always hard. It's always frustrating because this team is losing constantly. So if LaMelo at the end of the season isn't playing, then it's probably some mix of, well, he might not be 100%, but if we were on a playoff push, he'd probably suit up. And maybe he is 100%. I don't know. So bottom line, nobody would describe LaMelo as a full-on healthy basketball player at this point. I'm hoping we can see him play the 65-game threshold to receive accolades if he's deserving of them. I would hope that he at least takes care of the 65-game threshold to reach some of those, because I still think there's enough talent here to where he could be in the mix for some awards, whatever, right? Yeah. Like offensively gifted, third-team All-NBA guy, right? Like is that the breakout season? If everything shakes right, whatever, you get the idea. So we never get too much clarity at the end of the season because the Hornets have been a losing team for quite some time. I do think that Rick Schnall and Gabe Plotkin, the co-majority owners of this team, there's been some reporting about how they're not really having fun with losing anymore, and they're trying to ramp it up. And now that you have competent guards all across the board, you actually have some real depth rather than some fake depth. Yeah, it's all on the perimeter, but it is real depth, I would say. So, like, hopefully we can be in this play-in area where once you get to the play-in game, you don't get destroyed by 30 like the last two times they've been in the play-in tournament, and you actually parlay that into some playoff series. Even if they can't, at least you start to be competitive and go up towards a positive trajectory. We can start to figure out, is LaMelo going to be a hardcore pillar of this future? Brandon Miller, same thing. Like Con Knipple, all these guys. It's all about seeking clarity on all of these players. LaMelo's I'm a believer in LaMelo. It's all about him staying on the court with a competitive basketball team. I'm hopeful that we can check off the injury concerns box, like no more of that, and I'm hoping we can check off the at least we're a competitive basketball team box.
I think that's going to be a huge part of it. I am very convinced that, like, he played 22 games over the final 3 months of the season, which is normally it's about 40 games in a 3-month period, which again is that like time where they were really eased off. There was also a really different sort of scenario with LaMelo. I don't think people will remember this. Like, he had a stretch last season where he scored 35 points with 9 assists, and the next game he had 50 points with 10 assists, and the next game he had 44, 9, and 7. The next game he had 32, 10, and 7, and then he got hurt. And then we saw the situation with Brandon Miller. Now, he was taking a million shots, but when Miller went out, for whatever reason, Melo's usage came down. And I don't really know why that was. He rocked with a 36 usage over the course of the season, right? But over the final 3 months of the season, when Miller was out, he was at 32. So we saw there's many games here where he's taking 30 shot attempts. I go, okay, that's obviously a lot. And he was doing that when Miller was there, but then something changed. So I guess the question here is, why was that adjustment made? Because you would think that with Brandon Miller out, that LaMelo would take at least the same amount of offensive responsibility in terms of shots, not fewer shots, and by a significant margin. So what was the change there? Or do we go back to this Melo's taking 30 shots, 29 shots a game along with Miller, and they're doing a lot of this stuff? Or are we going to push back to that more reasonable 31, 32 usage?
Well, so to answer your first question, why did that happen? Honestly, I'm a little surprised because it just felt like LaMelo was taking a ton of shots regardless. Like when he was in the game, he was taking a ton of shots. My best answer at that question as to why it came down once Brandon got injured is there was a point where they were really using Miles Bridges a lot. And Miles Bridges is, I would think Miles' usage probably went up, just a guess without having seen the numbers.
I will look that up.
So they ran their offense a lot through Miles, and he's playing a ton of minutes for this team. He's a guy that Charles Lee and everybody celebrates in terms of what he does on the basketball court. They celebrate his leadership and his veteran leadership there and what he does offensively and defensively. So I wonder if the Miles impact had anything to do with it. In terms of the LaMelo shot diet, I think it's going to come down the field goal attempts per game, and I think that's a good thing. I think I would be willing to sacrifice volume for efficiency to a pretty significant portion with LaMelo, because I can't help but go back to that all-star season that LaMelo had when there was an above 500 basketball season, 43-39. The Hornets got to the play-in tournament. Gordon Hayward, Terry Rozier, again, competent basketball players where you're able to have an above 500 record. LaMelo gets to the all-star game because he puts up pretty damn awesome numbers, especially for a 20-year-old at the time, maybe 19, something like that. So I think what you want to do is now you have Colin Sexton, you have Trey Mann, you have these guys where you can explore with LaMelo off ball. He's been good in catch and shoot opportunities. So, okay, let's maybe have Con Knipple go with some secondary ball or playmaking type stuff. Like Trey Mann and LaMelo, you can have fun with the variability and the flexibility that you have with all these guards. So I'm really interested to see how they're going to use LaMelo and with what guard specifically. I think the field goal attempts overall come down, but I think the efficiency goes up. I'm a believer in LaMelo, man. This past year, it's just when those guys go out with significant injuries, the Hornets are really calling up G Leaguers, and that's not an exaggeration.
Yeah,
they're calling up Marcus
Ball.
Garrett. Oh, it's crazy. And that's what I think people miss on the LaMelo national discourse. It's, okay, I know you hate the one-legged fadeaway threes. I do get it. It's not great. but it's either that or it's passed to Wendell Moore. It's either that or pass to Marcus Garrett or Damian Ball. Like, these are all guys that are getting real run. Those are real players getting a decent amount of run, more so than you would expect. So now that instead you're passing to Colin, Trey, Con Knipple, hell, even Spencer Dinwiddie, right? Like, you might question it because of the roster imbalance, but Dinwiddie is still an NBA player. Right? He's better than all the other players I just mentioned. So I'm a believer. Surround him with talent, and then we can fairly evaluate what he truly is.
I am with you. I firmly believe that he is a very, very good player. I firmly believe he is the best player on this team. And if they go as far as he goes, like, you can talk about whatever you want with Brandon Miller. I don't think that Miller will ever get to the level that Ball did. And I want to leave it on this one last thing. You talked about that season where they had a winning record, because people will always talk from a fantasy perspective. I can't draft LaMelo. I need to see him play games. You know how many games he played in that season, Walker. You've got a rough idea. He played 75 games in that season, right? So the idea that LaMelo can't stay healthy is not true, because he did, right? And they were good, and he was good, and they were a solid team, and they were building. Now, he has had some injuries, but that is not to say that he hasn't been injured, because he has the last few years, and he's missed games with, again, the context of the last 20% of each of those seasons being just complete write-offs. But the proof is there. It did happen. The team was good. He played 75 games. It is a thing that happened. It has happened. He can withstand the season. We'll see whether he can again. I don't know that. But it has happened. So at least we've got that in our back pockets to know that, hey, when the team was actually had competent players, now Terry Rozier and Gordon Hayward are clearly no longer competent NBA players, hence Gordon doesn't play anymore. But at that point they were, and maybe they've got it now, and we will see if that makes a difference. I'm not going to get too hopeful for it, but
right.
I think it's something that it's very easy, and I talk about this quite a lot on this show, that we tend to have a 1 year memory. We go, well, they were bad. LaMelo played 40 games. He'll never play again. He's never going to do it. Okay, but it has happened. Doesn't mean that it will. Doesn't mean that it won't. But at least it has. And I think that's something we can be a little interested in. Walker, that is the Charlotte Hornets. At least a brief overview of their upcoming season. I can't wait for all of your cock and ball references on Locked On Hornets during the season. It's going to be just a cavalcade of whimsy over there. But I think this team, again, with the weakened state of the East and the additions that they made, again, the center position is still bad, but a lot of other really interesting players and some strengthening of areas is going to make them a team that maybe does a little bit more than what we've seen in the past. So thank you for coming on and chatting about the Hornets once again here on Locked On Fantasy Basketball.
Thanks, Josh. I appreciate it. And yeah, tune in every weekday. Obviously, we're putting those podcasts up, Locked On Hornets. Make sure you subscribe to the channel for all your favorite phallic nickname basketball players. That's right. We have those in droves here over with the Hornets. Thanks again, Josh.
Thank you. And that's the Hornets. Sounds like I've got some competition for who can drop the most dick jokes into a show. Walker doesn't really know who is battling, though, does he? I'm pretty sure I'll clear. But one thing you need to clear is hitting that thumb up button. If you haven't hit the thumb, why don't you do it? Why don't you subscribe? Why don't you double bang? Audio, video, you know where we are. You know how to do it. We have got the Houston Rockets coming up. We've got the Boston Celtics coming up. The San Antonio Spurs coming up. The Minnesota Timberwolves coming up over the next few days in terms of team previews. So stick around for those guys. We are done here. Thank you so much for listening, everyone. See ya.